Ludus Vulpes.
Welcome to Ludus Vulpes. My name's Kirsty.
I'm Phil.
And you join us as we run through the good, the bad, and the ugly of Bitoku.
Can you become the great forest spirit in this competition that sees you playing against up to three other players, not 4 other players, that'd be a 5-player game, up to 3 other players who all want the grand privilege of becoming the grand spirit? Bitoku is a game for 2 to 4, well, no, 1 to 4 players. There is a solo mode. It is a largish board, maybe not the largest board we've played on, and it plays over about 2 hours max. But when you're familiar with the game, you can certainly get a game out in a much shorter time frame than that. The board is one of the busiest looking boards I think I might have ever seen.
Yes.
But do you think it stays busy, Kirsty?
I don't want to give too much away now.
Okay, well, in that case, let's have a quick look at the game and we'll go through a brief overview of how the game plays. You join us here as we are 3 of 4 rounds out of the way of a game. So we've got 1 round left to play. We're both at fairly different game states. And as you can see, it said the board looks busy. The board looks incredibly busy. You've got this track at the top. You've got these cards here. You've got a little river running through the whole centre. You've got this section, which is a forest section. Then you've got some lakes underneath the forest. Then you've got some stones. Then you've got some dragonflies and some accompany spirits and some crystals and some houses. And there's a scoreboard around the edge. And there's more cards here, more cards here. There's a huge forest spirit token there. There's a season tracker token there. I mean, seriously, there's a lot on this board.
Yes, there is.
On your turn is limited to a number of actions. You are going to be able to play from your hand a card, and that card is going to go to your player board. And when you play a card to your player board, you're going to then unlock a dice. That unlocked dice does nothing this turn, but you also get to take the benefit on the bottom of the card. So this Nezumi, little dude here, little mouse, this Nezumi allows me to to place a building or take a crystal and play it on my player board. If I take a crystal, I'm going to place it in one of the crystal slots available, and I'm going to free up one of my pilgrims. You'll see some pilgrims are out on the board here. If I build a building, I'm going to put it out into one of the forest spaces, which means other players and yourself are going to be able to take advantage of the benefits at the bottom of the board. But you're also going to be able to, as a person who's played it out, move your little kodama tokens around one of the lakes. And the kodama tokens, these score victory points on all 5 lakes based on how far along the track you are, 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th in a 4-player game. So you're going to play a card. You're going to take the benefit on the bottom of the card. That's one of the actions you can take, playing the cards. And as you progress through the game, those actions are going to be able to do more as you maybe take something or move something along a track and then trigger something else and trigger something else. Fantastic. The other action you get to take is to place one of your dice. So if you've got a dice that's unlocked, you can take it from your player board and place it to one of the 5 forest spaces. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 major forest spaces, and then there's the home of the great forest spirit here, which dictates turn order. So whoever's at the top of that is going to be first player. I think we find it's not used that much.
No.
That's because these are incredibly useful. When you play to one of these forest spaces, you're going to get to do a couple of things. Thing 1 is take whatever action is detailed underneath your dice. So my dice is a 4. 4 or 5 allows me to build a building. Build a building or a crystal with a discount. That's a golden thumbs up, gives you a discount. Over here, I just get to take some resources. Over here, I get to move my pilgrims or my little Bitoku hopper, which is just down here. And over here, I get to take either Matami spirits or dragonflies, which do combine wonderfully into fireflies, which is really cute.
Gorgeous.
So the dice action allows you to take an action from off the board. But also, when you visit here, you have a look at the buildings that are built in that forest space.
For example, if I had put this 5 here, I would then get to do 3 movement, either along my Bitoku track or move one of my pilgrims along the top track. Then I'd also get to take one of these benefits. Now, you can only take the benefit if your dice is the same number of pips or
higher.
The same. Yeah, higher. Yeah. But you can only choose one of them. So, for example, here I would get to take 3 resources. This one is take 3 victory points, and this one's 2 resources. So with the 5, I'm able to do all of those items.
A choice of all of those. You can only do one.
Yeah.
But the other thing that will happen is if you choose this one, which is 3 resources, which in a game that can often be resource scarce, not always, but sometimes be resource scarce, 3 resources is good, but this is my building. So if someone other than me gets to take it, I will also get a little benefit of either, in this case, a victory point and a +1 token.
Nice.
Which brings us briefly onto the tokens. The +1, +2 and +3 tokens, just highlighted over there, they allow you to increase your dice value as you play them from your player board to a forest space. You can only do it as you play them. You can't do it once it's over at the forest space. Now, that kind of explains most of the actions that are going on down here. Once you've got a dice on the board, however, there is a further action you can do, which is called crossing the river. And when you cross the river, you use energy for your guardians, which are your dice, and that reduces the value on the dice by 1. And you can cross in a 2-player game to either of these 2 spaces and take one of 3 benefits. You can take a new Bitoku card, which has a benefit when you play it and is worth some victory points. Sorry, not a Bitoku card, one of these character cards, or a Bitoku card, which goes onto your Bitoku path. Kirsty's got far more on her Bitoku path than I at the moment. Or you can take the final benefit over here, which is to draw some new vision cards. And you always, whenever you draw cards from Vision deck, you draw 2, keep 1, or discard both to gain a resource. You can place a pilgrim next to an Iwakura stone, which are these stones here. We've got 1 each on our player. I've got attached on my player board now. Or you can take an Iwakura rock or move a kodama spirit. So there's loads you can do when you step over. And if at the end of the turn you've got 5 of these character cards available, you can discard 1 from your player board for the victory points on the bottom of that.
One thing to note is if you have a 6, like so, it was a 2 on my board, I'll put it back as a 2.
That's fine.
We're halfway through the game. When it crosses over, it has to immediately halve. So a 5 will go down to a 4, 4 to 3, 2 to 1, 1 can't cross, but a 6 immediately drops down to a 3.
But if you've played a 6, you've been able to take quite a powerful action.
Yes, you have.
Certainly over here with the build action, you get to build both a building and a crystal, and over here you get to take a dragonfly and a Matami spirit. So the 6s are really powerful. And every now and again, you'll probably want to play 1 or 2 6s in a game. Mm-hmm. You don't play a lot of them, because building that dice value up is actually quite hard work. The final part of the player board we've got, the final 2 parts of the player board we've got, across here are the paths of wisdom. And we start on this end and you move your pilgrims across the path of wisdom. Wherever they choose to stop, there'll be a benefit. They either stop at spires or gates. If you stop at a gate, the next time you start a pilgrim, you can start...
Watchtower, not a spire.
Watchtower or spire. Watchtower.
No, yeah.
And at the gates, you can start your next pilgrimage from a gate space. Yeah. So in this instance, my purple pilgrim's here. I can start from this space. And I'm going to be working this way across the board. We both are. On a 3-player game, the path comes down and splits. So you got to pick which path you want to follow. And we'll talk about why that's great on multiple play games in our good, the bad, and the ugly section. But that gives you a brief overview of what you're doing. At the end of the turn, you're going to do a little bit of a reset on the board. You're going to take income based on what tiles, crystals you've got on the board. And you're going to score points based on discarding 1 of your characters that you may have got. The vision cards are points at the end of the game. Points are either gold carp, which are scored immediately, or purple carp, which is scored at the end of the game.
There are also blue carp, which are minus points.
You'll find them only, I think, so far, on vision cards. So that's in essence how the game plays. So what do we like? What are our goods? What do we dislike? What are our bads that might stop us buying this game? What are our uglies? Things that we might like to see changed or improved. So, Kirsty, what are your goods?
Okay, so for me, I don't think I can list enough goods about this game. We first saw this at Essen,
2021.
2021, and it was such a beautiful game. Yes, when you first look, it's like, whoa, that's like a rainbow has spilled its contents all over the board. But it does completely make sense the moment that you start playing the game. What I love about this game is how complex it immediately feels, but instantly becomes very easy. It's the most difficult part are choices of where to get your points from. But that isn't, there's always different options. The variety in the game, if one person's going hard for Bitoku cards, it's a very well balanced game in points. Like someone else can go for emptying their player board, and because you get victory points along your player board. Someone else can gain points from the rocks. Someone else might choose to do it through the build. You know, there's so many different options that it's not just a one track.
Yeah, no, not at all.
In any way, shape, or form. The artwork in this game is absolutely stunning. It's just beautiful.
It is.
And even the iconography connects with the artwork. So, for example, can you just show me your card? I think it's one that you discarded for points, and it's one where you can pick up a what's the character card called?
I don't know, character cards.
So this one, as you can see, the iconography reflects the back of. I'll just show you here. So it's a very rough drawing of that. And it's the same with the wisdom cards. So you can see here there's a wiggly purple line, which is actually this one. So it's not just, oh, we need to come up with that. We'll just create a very simple miniature version of, of the card itself. The iconography is so clear throughout the game, it makes it really, really easy to, well, I believe easy to teach, but also really easy to pick up. So Phil first learnt the rulebook, and when I first sat down, I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. But actually, within maybe the second round, I was like, yes, I understand, I know what's going on. But if you're not sure at any point, there's a fantastic, it looks massive. Don't worry, it's not. It's just showing you every possible.
It's a massive player aid, but it's worth it.
But it's really easy to follow. This is a glossary of what all the different iconography is.
This is normally in most games. Sorry, I mean, we're wafting sheets at you. Most of the time in this game, these would only be in the rulebook, this kind of glossary, and you'd be handing the rulebook around to every player.
Backwards and forwards. There's one for every player, which I think is fantastic. And you do refer to that and use that, and you know what? It's okay to use that. That's what it's there for. I think the quality of the components and just everything that Devir have gone as all far out. As all out on this, and it's fantastic. The design with the little houses is so cute. Each of the characters are so distinguished. It's not just colour, but there's definitely like a character there. The spirit of the forest, it's beautiful. I know there's been a few comments about people who have broken theirs and they're waiting for them to be received. As long as you're careful with your games,
handle with care.
You should be fine. One thing to note, these trays do not come with the game. They are purchased separately, and we'll just put a little link below so you know where they're from. But everything in the game is fantastic. I mean, even little screen printed like Saki, like the resources are not just wood, stone, brick, this. Yes, there's wood. Yes, there's stone, but there's jade, there's Saki. It's thematic. This game is thematic, isn't it? It's not mechanisms for the sake of it's mechanisms that lead to fantastic gameplay. So that's my goods. I'm sure I'll come up with more, but you can tell I love this game. I'm raving about it. It's definitely up there for me. Yeah,
my goods. Kirsty's covered a lot of them. Sorry. It's quite okay, so let's talk about things that Kirsty hasn't mentioned. Incredibly versatile and diverse startup positions. So a lot of these tiles are going to be randomized lakes, randomized gates at the top. Yeah. The other thing Devir's done is they've managed the 2, 3, 4 player startups really well. On the flip side of this board, when you're in a 3 or a 4 player game, there are inserts that you slot in for 3 and 4 players, and they change the variability of the game. So you've got a wonderful variable startup position. No 2 games are going to be exactly the same. A lot of the times you're going to be focusing on your victory points that are going to come from things that, initially things that are either like you start off with one of these Iwakura stones, which look at, something that's going to score your points. So in my case, it's putting red and water, fire and water buildings out. And then I need to put some pilgrims around them to score points. So I can get 12, 15 points just from that. But that's not going to win me the game, because a game of Bitoku is probably going to go to somewhere between 120 and 150 points. So I'm going to need, that's 10% of my overall score, a minimum that I'm looking for. So I'm going to be scoring points elsewhere. And I've got to manage those points, points gained during the game against points gained at the end of the game. And it becomes a real challenge. But because there's so many paths to score those points, you never feel like you're locked in or stuck. Sometimes Kirsty has felt like she's been stuck in this game, and sometimes I felt like I've been stuck in games. But actually, there's always a path. It might not be the optimal path, because other players will block your optimal path, but there's always something you can do that will gain you an advantage.
So this little rock, for example, that I was given at the start, I get points for kappas, which are one of the characters. Not one single kappa has come out during the entire game. So if I was relying on that heavily, which thankfully I'm not, I'm not going to win this game, I don't believe, but it's very much, I'm glad I didn't hold out everything for that point.
That's fair enough. And that's the beauty of the game, because you don't have to hold out. The other thing that's really challenging is dice values. So you start off with dice of values 1, 2, and 3. And at the end of each round, you bring them back from the board, and they maintain their value that they've gained whilst being out on the board, which obviously, if you've crossed the river, you've reduced by 1. So if you're not careful... Or 3, player 6. If you're not careful, you can end up in a really suboptimal place at the start of a turn, and you're looking for where the tokens are coming from that is going to boost the value of those dice. So there's a lot going on, because the value of the dice is going to dictate to a certain extent just how much you can do. But those decisions never feel like they're obstructed or you're in the way. Sometimes players will block you, as I mentioned, but that blocking is not necessarily intentional. It doesn't feel bad a lot of the time. And there's so much you can do with the game as you play to the board. So it's really is a fantastically bright, colourful game with with a lot going on and a lot of points coming from all over. So there are goods. What are bads?
Okay, now I'm really, really struggling with bads for this one.
I'm just going to clarify what we consider a bad. So a bad is something that you might stop you buying the game. So the value of the game compared to the enjoyment you're getting from it. What are the something that's bad is something that in your head might say, actually, based on that, I don't want to buy this game.
Okay, so if you're only into very lightweight 20-minute games, don't buy this game. It's probably one of the only bads I can actually come up with. I was really disappointed that we couldn't pick it up from Essen last year, and it took us to get to the UK Games Expo this year, 2022, to be able to get this game. And it's been on the table almost ever since, hasn't it? It's definitely... Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing bads.
You slipped back into goods again.
The inability to get this game was my bad.
Okay.
And I struggled to come up with any bads because personally, for my type of game, the thinkiness, the slightly heavier side, even though it's not a heavy game, is right up my street. So in terms of, I'm struggling to find...
That's okay.
Bads, unfortunately.
That's okay. Because I have maybe 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so let's look at my bads. Let's talk about what my bads are. So the first one is, Kirsty's mentioned that it's a up to 2-hour game. It's probably an hour and a half, even with 4 players, once you get used to it, which I don't think is a bad playtime at all. It fits into a club night. That's always a good sign. I think for me, the bad is if you don't like the graphic design, if you don't like the art style, you're not going to get on with this game.
No.
Now, what I would beg you to do is get past the busyness of the board, because that might be an initial put-off, but actually once you've got a game under your belt...
Maybe 2.
The clarity on the board is really clear.
Yeah.
The iconography is good. The segmentation of the board is good. But initial glance might be a bit off-putting. The other thing is, if you only want to play heavy Euros, this game is not a heavy Euro. It's a mid to heavyweight. It's pushing just on the the heavier side of the mid range.
I think it depends how many people and who you're playing with as well.
Yeah, because the players do make a difference. But I would say this is a midweight game. It's a bit point salady, so you often aren't going to be able to hit a single strategy and focus on it to maximise points. So if you like games that allow you to focus on a single strategy, if you like games that are heavier weight games, Bitoku is not for you. That said, for everyone else, Bitoku is a great game.
It is. It's fantastic.
So
try it.
Really minimal bads for me.
Yeah.
Okay, well that brings us on to our uglies. These are things we might like to see changed in the game. I'll do my uglies first. I've talked about the graphic design and the busy board. That actually isn't ugly for me. It takes a game, maybe 2 games, to have real familiarity with it. The way games are often played, so people will play this once and not play it again for another 3 months. That's a mistake. Don't do that with games. Play them more than once. And Kirsty's mantra of play back to back is always a good one if you can. But this busy graphic design means that you probably, if you don't play regularly and get it locked into your head, this is going to be a slow start game every time you put it on the table, just to explain every area on the board. Doable, absolutely doable. But it's a slow start game. And I would like maybe a little bit cleaner graphic design just to make it a little bit more straightforward. Like, for example, this patch here, which is the home of the Great Forest Spirit. So these forest spaces have got little red leaves around them, and the across the river spaces have got little blue leaves around them. And this space here, these are forest spaces, so they've got little red leaves, but they are also across the river, which in your first game is going to cause all kinds of confusion. Why couldn't the river bow out here? I mean, it's a simple thing, but these are my uglies, and they're not showstoppers by any stretch of the imagination.
As you can see, we're really scratching to find these uglies.
So from a graphic design point of view, I think there's a bit of frustration there. It could have been a bit tighter and a bit tidier, but actually that would have also taken a little bit of the artwork away. So I don't know. You make your choice on that. For me, I think 2 games in, and it's pretty straightforward at that point.
Yeah.
I want to just talk about this rule book, and I couldn't make my mind up whether this was a good or an ugly, and that really feels weird for me. Yeah.
Okay.
And I put it in the ugly, even though having now played the game, I find the way the rule book is laid out is very good. But the ugly is your first learn of the game.
Okay. So
the rule book basically does what most rule books do. It explains how the game works in the phases, so on and so forth. It explains some essential concepts. And then later on, it goes on to explain each area of the board after it's taught the game. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, to me, you'd run through the different areas of the board, like when Crystal Palace, another dice placing game and card game. In fact, slight nod,
there are
maybe,
nods in some direction.
because you don't roll the dice in that.
No, you don't. You set them yourself, yeah.
So to me, when I was first learnt that was the first thing that, like that, and there's a connection there. In like that one, the easiest way to teach an Imperial Steam, when we were teaching Imperial Steam, is you go through what the actions are first.
Yeah.
Actually, say what the point of the game is and tell the story, then the actions. Yeah. If you don't tell people the story and why they're doing it, it's much harder to play the game.
I think so. The story doesn't link as well. So for me, the rule book was, at first, for the first time you're learning it, I think is a little bit awkward. But after you've learnt it,
makes complete sense.
It's so quick to reference the bits you need.
Yeah.
If there's a little bit of a fringe rule,
and you might not even need to. With the hand and player guide.
Yeah. So it is an ugly rather than a good, but there's definitely strength in the rule book as well, and it's either so Fantasy Flight I think do it quite well, which is a learn to play and then a rules reference. That is kind of what's happened here, but in one book, and it's meant that the learn to play is maybe not as complete as it could be, but the rules reference at the back half of the book works superbly well. So that's probably my 2 uglies: a bit of graphic design and a bit of the rule book. but none of them get in the way of my enjoyment of the game.
No.
Now, you've had your pause for thought. What are your uglies?
Still struggling. I see what you mean about the river here. Whether, I don't know.
I think Emma Uber's kind of ugly.
That's not very nice.
She's not pretty.
You don't know who that's based on. Be careful what you say.
Okay.
No. No, don't think I've got any. I'm going to put it out there. I don't think I've got any. This game is, I wouldn't say faultless, because it depends on the person that you are. It depends what kind of artwork you prefer, and the people that you're playing with as to how much enjoyment you're going to get from this game. But I'd struggle to say, unless you're a very lightweight gamer, I challenge you not to play.
Yeah.
You need to, and as we said, back to back, a couple of times, get the game into your head. Once you've got it in there, it will just be a breeze. It's very Zen-like playing this game.
Yeah, it is.
I can't.
So,
Sorry.
and just as a set of final thoughts, really. So, I would say this game, from a complexity level, is something that you might, if you're teaching games to non-gamers and you've progressed through a certain set of games, you might hit something at the complexity of Wingspan, and then this is probably your next step.
Yeah.
It's much more complex. Well, not much more complex. It's more complex than Wingspan. It's busier.
More thoughts.
Yeah. Now, but the systems, importantly, the systems don't massively interlink, so you can do something without it massively affecting the board state.
I quite like that.
Which is quite nice. I think when you go past this level of complexity, you're playing games that you do something here and it affects something here and affects something there, and then it really slows people's play down because they're having to think about what they want to do next. Whereas this game, there are systems, they're kind of loosely linked. You need to do something to achieve something else, but they're not tightly bound, so that if I take that Kappa card, it's not affecting something else over here.
Yeah.
That's nice, and I think this is probably a nice place before you, you don't have to explore more complex games with people, but if you want to help people make a step into slightly more complex games, this is a really nice,
a lovely little stepping
port
stone.
on the call. Port to step into now, and you can stop here because there's there's enough game here to keep a lot of people, 4 people occupied for hours and hours and hours of fun.
What's really nice as well, just going to go back to another good, is the artwork. So when you go over 100, rather than having a little token that then sits on top of you, you just turn a little flag over from not 100 to, yay, celebration of 100 plus, and then you're going round again.
Yeah.
It's just a nice little nod. So it's not one of those that you're going to be doing hundreds and hundreds because you're set up to be over 100 because of this. But it's not like, oh, that's 100, that's 200, that's 3, and having to keep track of it.
I would say for me, having played this game a number of times now, this is great value for money. This is an easy game to recommend to people who like their midweight Euros. Yeah. And also may want a game that they can move some non-gamers or people who are new to gaming into a slightly more complex game.
For me, I think it's a fantastically beautiful, once you get over the whoa, like rainbow of colour, game. I feel it's different in the respect that there's no war, there's no attack, there's no brutality in the game. It's a very zen-inducing, relaxing, yet competitive. You're adding up your points. You're just happily going through. We did mention earlier there are minus victory points, the blue ones. And that is, so if I can score this card, it will give me 4 points. If I can't, it's minus 1 point onto the total. That's the only place that minus points come from.
And you won't be getting many of the minus points.
No. And so in that way, it's a nice introductory game for people. If you're starting to turn towards that, there are negative points, whereas not all games have that. And this is a nice, gentle ease in.
Agreed.
So for me, I couldn't recommend this game enough. Well done, Devir. I think you've the component quality and, as we said, the other side of the board and
it's brilliant.
The ability to change the different player type, that's ingenious, and I think more games should do that. I definitely think it's fantastic quality. The player boards are good quality.
They're not flimsy, floppy.
We are We are fussy about this.
We are.
And we are happy with the thickness of the player boards.
If you've played Bitoku and you like it or loathe it maybe, feel free to add some comments below.
We are on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. So all you need to do is search for Ludus Vulpes.
And if you love this video, found it useful, please like and subscribe.
Give us a little thumbs up. We really, really enjoy that.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks everyone. See you soon.
Bye-bye.